Welcome back. Let us resume our CSS series. I already explained briefly about the CSS syntax, and of course, there's still a few more to know. Even though the syntax itself is pretty straightforward, there are tons of selectors and selector combinations that make it possible to get really granular control. You will also need to learn the various properties you can set for each HTML element and the values that are allowed for that property. While we are talking about syntax, I must mention the use of spacing. You see, spacing inside the declaration block doesn't matter. From the example I'm showing you here, we get the same result with each of these options. The spacing is mostly used for readability while you are writing your styles. And then once you've finished, you could maximize your styles, meaning that you can take all of the white space out. Now, don't get it wrong. When it comes to selectors, spaces do matter and are used intentionally to target specific elements. CSS also lets you group selectors together if they share the same declarations. This is done by separating each selector with a comma. In this example I displayed, both our P and H3 elements were 18 pixels, so we could go ahead and group those together and use a single declaration block. Like other programming languages, CSS allows for comments. Comments are used to explain code and come in really handy when you edit your CSS at a later date or when someone else is viewing your code or trying to understand what's going on. The four most common basic selectors are type selectors, also referred as element selectors. The class selector, the ID selector, and the descendant selector. I have explained these selectors in the previous video. You can go back to have a recap. Let me quickly walk us through the CSS combinators. A combinator is something we can use to explain the relationship between selectors. There are four of them, starting with the descendant selector, followed by child selector indicated by the greater than sign. Next, the adjacent sibling selector indicated by a plus sign, and the general sibling selector indicated by the tilde. Please take note of these signs. The descendant selector targets elements that are inside another element, no matter how deeply nested. The child selector targets elements that are direct children of another element. The adjacent sibling selector targets an element that is immediately next to another element. The general sibling selector targets all elements that are siblings of a specified element. Do you get that? Now remember that to style elements in your documents, you will need to write selectors that target those elements. Please kindly take note of all of these. Hope you are able to jot down all of these. Okay, in the next video we're moving straight into working with fonts with CSS. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our platform and stay tuned.